Hello and welcome to the Teton River Botany Group podcast.
As mindful citizens, we should learn about the adverse effects of non-native and invasive plants.
The plants along the Teton River are essential to the survival of countless fish and animals, but the plants of the Teton River can't protect themselves without our help, and here's why.
The plants along the Teton River watershed are highly threatened by invasive plants. Invasive plants outcompete native plants by using up space that is necessary for the survival of native species. Many are also not palatable to most animals because they usually are poisonous or the animals don't recognize them as food. The most problematic invasive species along the Teton River include the leafy spurge, knapweed, thistle, and oxeye daisy.
So you may ask, why do the native plants that live right along the banks of the river matter so much? Well, it is because the plant roots stabilize the soil in the riparian area. Where the willow tree, birch tree, and cottonwood tree grow, this stabilization also helps keep sediment from being washed into the river and becoming a pollutant.
The plants around the river not only help with erosion control, but they also support wildlife. Wildlife is protected and supported by the plants because the plants give shade, food, and homes for animals that live around the river. According to invasivespecies.idaho.gov, quote, invasive species are highly destructive, and if left unchecked will destroy Idaho's natural beauty and economy, end quote.
Now back to the concept that invasive species are dangerous to indigenous plants and animals. These non-native species harm the plants of the Teton River by
eating up space that the native species need to thrive, using resources that are needed by plants around the river. Some of the invasive plants can poison native and domestic animals, and invasive plants can spread to agricultural areas and cause economic damage to both crops and grazing land.
Yikes! Invasive plants, commonly known as weeds, spread very quickly. It can outcompete slower growing plants that are very important to the health of the Teton River watershed.
Invasive plants take essential resources out of the food chain that native plants need to thrive.
We saw a great example right on the Teton River. Luckily, it didn't end up killing all the plants along the bank. The story goes like this.
So, one person must have been enjoying the natural beauty of the Teton River while eating an apple. When the apple was almost gone, eaten all the way down to the core, that person must have thought, well, that's no biggie. I'll just toss this apple core. It will decompose. But little did they think about, there are seeds in that apple. And now there is an involuntary apple tree growing along the south bank of the Teton River.
The bottom line with invasive plants in our ecosystem, or any ecosystem, is that it decreases the biodiversity. This will decrease the services the ecosystem provides to other organisms as well as humans. Invasive plants will disturb food chains and disrupt the riparian habitat, causing a negative domino effect to aquatic species, both in the river and along the river, as well as plant life on the banks.
This whole time we've been telling you the bad news, but what we haven't told you, there's good news.
You can help the Teton River. Not only that, but it won't even be difficult. All you have to do is follow these 3 rules of thumb.
1. If you want to go to the Teton River or any river, always make sure there are no seeds stuck to your clothing.
2. Avoid removing native plants or disturbing the soil in and around the Teton River. This might lead to freeing up space for invasive plants to take over. Kosher weed is especially good at stealing open spaces.
Now, this one is probably the most effective of the 3. You can support fundraisers and groups that protect the Teton River.
In conclusion, the Teton River still has time before it succumbs to invasive plants. With your help, the native habitats can be restored.
Now that you know how, will you help support the Teton River?
Special thanks to Mr. Travis Phillips from Madison High School for his help, Daniel Call, a BYU Idaho botany student, and to Professor Gary Baird for spending a day with us along the Teton River and sparking our interest.